Welcome everyone to another episode of Should We Buy This House? I'm really excited about this episode because we have a very dynamic, very experienced real estate investor, realtor, very professional. And so we're going to jump right into this deal and we're going to be talking about different aspects of real estate investing and, like really capturing the mindset, the thought process of approaching deals. So we're going to jump right in. So Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing today?
Excellent, excellent. So I'm really excited about this. So the property we're looking at is 4106 Falls Road, Baltimore, Maryland. I can bring it up on the screen well, okay, so basically what we want to do is this is that I want you to, ask me any questions you have about it. I'll give you, all the data you need. And basically, Jeff, we want to um, witness your thought process regarding how you would arrive at your MAO, your maximum allowable offer.
Got you. Okay, I understand. Well, firstly, I think it all begins with what are my long-term investment goals? You know what I mean? So
Go ahead.
the way that I would approach any deal is, does this align with those goals? Because not all of them do. It might work for someone else. Say, this deal, say the terms are tight. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
doing them piece at a time,
Right.
makes sense. But if you're wanting to do it through accumulation, you know, what is the ARV in this property? Will there be equity in there for me to leverage after the fact? Right.
Right.
Because also, we don't have what's our capital? What are we sitting on?
Right.
Because that would also determine what type of financing I'm using. Because, it's not might not always be ideal to be, all in on a single property. That could be a really quick way to go, bankrupt when you're investing if you have a bad egg. Um, so like for
Right.
me, my goals are volume. I want to have many, right? So taking my capital and spreading it out and leveraging it
Right.
is a better approach.
Good point. So in
Yeah.
this particular situation, imagine this, and you make a good point of how, every deal is different and every investor is different. So you make a good point. So for the sake of this analysis, suppose that you knew that these owners were motivated, right?
Mhm.
And suppose that your vision would be that you want to have a buy and hold. You want something that's kind of like going to be part of your future retirement plan, right? You want something to
Gotcha.
cash flow so that, and even for, your children's children, something you can pass down to your a cash flowing rental property. So let's approach it with that mindset that it's a buy and hold. So what would be some questions that you would have? I know you mentioned ARV. I can get you that. So the ARV, because, I did like a detailed, like a CMA, right?
Yeah.
Comparable, the comps and the ARV. Let me grab that ARV. Where is, let's see, the ARV. Okay, 365. 365
It's very nice.
ARV.
All right. And ask price.
Okay. So no, okay, yeah. So their asking price, right, is 299, which is interesting. It started out at 325 and then they brought it down to 299 and then they even brought it down lower to 285. Have you been noticing that, Jeff? Like in this market right now, seems like it's turning into a buyer's market. I'm seeing a lot of price reductions in Baltimore.
Indeed, indeed. We are finally seeing that shift here. And that's like, especially on the retail, if you want to call it that
Mhm.
retail side of it, folks looking for their primary residence, et cetera. We're definitely seeing a lot more of that. And so the tides, they are shifting.
Yeah. So, this is like an example of how, okay, so you see how the price keeps coming down. And like I said, let's assume the owner is motivated. And so we want to just to figure out what would be the price that would work for us. So yeah, all right. So but yeah, so right now currently, right, like 285 is what the ask price is. Hmm.
Okay. Gotcha. 285 is the current ask price.
Hmm.
Okay. So another quick tip, have a partner sometimes is a good thing, like my partner is more this guy and I'm more boots on the ground, construction background, knows how to run people, that's kind of we have a great dynamic. But I mean, I know enough to get by. He would be proud of me here, I think.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
cool.
so going into this, first things first is I'm going to look at, okay, we got purchase price. How am I going to fund this deal? All right,
Ah,
so
good point.
we're
Good
going to
point.
assume I'm doing a conventional loan. Like me personally, I would
Okay.
never use a conventional loan. I would always go, I mean, unless it needed nothing. If it was turnkey,
Uh-huh.
maybe a conventional loan with a low interest rate. But if I got to purchase it and do a little bit of reno, depending on how much capital I have, I would either purchase it outright, finance the rehab through hard money, or the opposite, finance the purchase, pay use my own capital for the rehab,
Mhm.
and then DSCR refinance out of it. Because what that also allows is like, say you're buying this property with your personal name.
Mhm.
If you use a conventional loan, this is now going to count against your own debt ratios. And say you want to move your own personal primary residence. Well, you can't because you're floating another mortgage. You know what I mean? But if you use a DSCR loan, it's a really great product that lenders offer. And basically, it lets the cash flowing, positive cash flow of
Mhm.
the asset justify the loan. Um, and it doesn't count against your personal income or
Yeah.
your personal debts.
Good,
Um,
good
I
point.
would recommend always buying your properties in an LLC,
Right.
especially if you're going to rent, because
Right.
my God, someone slips, falls, good
Right.
Lord, you want to have the liability be
Yeah.
on your entity and not on your
Yes.
personal.
Yes. Yes. Although you do pay a slightly higher interest rate for loans if it's in the entity, but yeah, yeah, it is better because of the liability, right? Protection.
Right.
Right. Okay. Good point.
Especially on a hold.
Good point.
Yep.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Now, so here's the thing to note about this. So the house is livable. The house is livable. However, so we did had an inspector come through and everything to make it rent ready though, even though it's livable, to make it rent ready, we need to spend like $40,000, right? So, but it
Gotcha.
is it is rent ready. So knowing that it's rent ready, we can skip the whole step of hard money. We can go straight to financing as like we can go straight. Okay, so let's talk about it. What are our options now? We can go straight into a DSCR loan,
Mm,
or I mean, I know you don't like this option. We could do a conventional,
mm.
or I guess just your own money, and then try to refinance it at a higher term, right? After you kind of fix it up more, something like that.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I mean, conventional would work great,
Right.
especially if you have enough capital to just pay for this whole thing cash. If you're paying for this whole thing cash, why not, you know, get it all ready to go and then you can just leverage what you want out of it. Now you have equity that you can pull out of it. I mean, so getting rid of all your capital,
Right.
but if
Right.
you really wanted to,
Right.
you could have it and then now your money is wrapped up in an asset, but you can leverage it though, because now you have all this equity. Let's say the perfect
Right.
world, you have 365K, like you said. That's a
Right.
lot of equity to tap into. My goodness,
Right.
open up a big old fat HELOC and then just
Right.
go to town on your next one.
Right. 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 Right.
Is that jiving or?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So now, keep in mind though, I mean, just getting into some of the nuances, right? If it's in the
Mm,
LLC, we can't technically get a HELOC. Well, I mean, we can get like a HELOC on an investment property, and that's a little bit more difficult to find than if it was on a personal residence, right?
yeah, it's a tougher
Yeah.
product. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But now, okay, so yeah, so you bring up a good point about financing. Okay, so let's imagine this. A typical person, all right? Typical professional in their 40s, they might have retirement savings that they could tap into, but now keep in mind, because they're under 59 and a half, they're gonna have to pay a penalty, a 10% penalty if they try to draw money out of their retirement, right, early. But if the deal is good enough, then maybe they would consider tapping into their retirement funds. But a typical person might just have like 10, 15, $20,000, you know what I'm saying? Not not hundreds of thousands just laying around. So
Okay.
Yeah, let's think in that term.
Gotcha. So we're fighting to get our first one here. We are
Uh,
scraping the bottom. We are everything we got trying to get our first one to get going. This is our first domino.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Got you.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Okay.
Did you have a renovation, budget? Oh, you said
So
40,000.
40,000,
All
40,000.
right.
Yeah,
So we're at
40,000.
285 and you got 40 on there. Okay. So three. Ooh, it's starting to get tight with your ARV at 365.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, because you're going to be looking at, let's see, let's do down payment is
Right.
what was our down payment?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So which way would you think we should go, right? Should we go whether we go conventional investment or a DSCR, we still going to be doing at least 20 or 25% down payment, right?
Yeah. Nah. I've met. I don't know what the downs are for the SCR product. I really don't, to be
Okay,
just
20,
completely
20,
transparent.
20,
20.
20, 20%.
Okay.
Especially if you're new. So I think like if you're more of an experienced investor, some of these mortgage companies will give you a break, but especially if you're new, I think they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
want you to put at least 20% down.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So let's do some math here. Sorry about that.
Very good.
All right. So wow, it's so 20% on 285 is a lot of money. It's
And
57,000.
and closing costs too, right?
Yeah, it's about.
If you're getting a DSCR, um, we're looking at, I mean, would you say maybe
Four.
10,000, $15,000
I'd say,
of closing costs? Because origination fees and all that, you know?
yeah, I'd say roughly between 4 and 4.5% of the purchase price is what you'll pay in
Okay.
closing costs. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So you got say 57, and then you got, let's just say it's four. That's 11. Yeah, 11.4.
11,400.
So
Okay.
yeah, so you're like 68.5, just about like all in cash, give or take. At that purchase price of 285.
Okay, and just to calculate that, I mean, the way you calculate that, you did the what 20% down,
Mm-hmm.
and what was that? What was 20%?
57,000.
57,000. And then you
Yep.
added on closing costs that we're saying around 11,400.
Yep. That's about 4% of that purchase price.
Okay.
Yep.
And then so you just added those two numbers together
Yes, sir.
to get what was that?
It's like 68.5, 68.4,
68. Okay.
give or take.
68.4. Right, right. Now, here's something that a lot of people overlook, right? When you talk about closing costs does not include other very important things like inspectors, like getting an
Right.
inspection, right? So I
Right.
just want to highlight for our viewers that, when you're thinking about these, you got to also think about some of these other costs, inspection. Also in Baltimore, especially if it's an older house, you got lead paint inspection too
Oh
that you
yeah.
have to do, lead paint. You got the rental license. That's
That's
another
always a pain because that
inspection, right?
appraiser comes out and they're gonna pick it to death and make sure that checklist of theirs is nice and, you know,
Right.
T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and everything's good to go. Yep.
Right, right. And also too, especially in Baltimore, some people consider doing, some people really love taking advantage of the Section 8 program too,
Yes, sir.
And so, that might also have, their own process of like getting, into that system and all that. So, okay. Any other costs that you can think of? I mean, in addition to the closing costs, we talk about, having a professional inspection, we talk about lead paint inspection, we talk about rental license inspection. Anything
Just
else?
renovation. I mean, and that comes
Yeah,
after the
yeah,
fact.
yeah. That comes after a fact.
Um,
So okay, that's just. I know one thing that I like the thought of is having security cameras. I know that's optional, and I know you have to be careful too with that. I mean, they have to be outside the house and everything. I like just as a little side note, right? I feel just so comfortable. It just brings me a lot of security, feeling like being able to have a security camera on the front entrance and on the back entrance. Because even little things like when I get a contractor or handyman to come over to the house, I can track to see what time they entered, what time they left. I can just be able to have that, that the so and so it really helps me because I don't have to be present at the
Right.
property as much if I have access to the video cameras. Have you leveraged video cameras at your properties at all?
No, I have not. Because I've mainly done flipping.
Okay.
I do want to get a lot of holes. I mean, my goal is, 100 doors the next, 8 to 10 years. I want to have at
Mm,
least 100. If I don't have it by then,
mhm,
I don't know.
mhm,
But so it's definitely a world that I'm trying to enter. But on my flips, no, I haven't done that. Um, you know, but then again, going back to what is your goals with this whole thing, I was spending a lot of my own time down there, you know,
mm,
and if
mm.
you're talking about having many holds, like, or in this case, you don't want to have to visit the property a lot.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah, question for you about the flips even though. I mean, have you ever had a situation with security? And, when you're doing a flip, renovation, the house of course is being left vacant. And then especially as you get to the end of the flip, you're putting in all these appliances and everything. Do you have some type of security system or how do you handle that?
You know what? I don't.
Okay.
Living on blessings and prayers.
True.
Been very fortunate to not have any issues. I mean, I try to be picky about
Right.
where I'm flipping at,
Right.
and I find that most of the places where that's an issue, I'm
Okay.
not really getting the returns that I need anyway.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
it kind
Gotcha.
of it's
Gotcha.
just it kind of comes
Okay.
out in the wash.
Gotcha. Okay. Good point. Good point. Now, and you're very hands-on. I know we're kind of going on a tangent here, but this is good. So you're kind of hands-on when you do your flips, or do you have like a trusted GC that's kind of like managing the day-to-day?
Gotcha. So on my very first one, I tried to GC the whole thing. My first one was a disaster.
Mm,
Tips for anyone getting started in this: you're going to need a contractor. You're going to have renovations. The team that you build is more important than anything else.
mm,
The money, the deals, like you can't do anything with them unless you have the team.
mhm,
Um, and bidding contractors, having them bid
mm,
over one another,
mm,
you find someone who can work at the pace you want, and
mm,
they're your team, and you can trust them, and they're consistent, and they'll go in and keep producing the same result that you
mm,
want.
mm,
Stick with that until you
mhm,
can replicate it in the future. You know what I mean? Bidding people, wasting all that time. You know, I like to get to know what I already know what my contractor is going to say. So when I
mm,
walk in,
mm,
I'm kind of spitballing my own budget without even, a full inspection. Now, again,
mm,
experience will speak to, I can look at this and say, hey, we got to do that. We need to put that in the budget. Yeah, that's got to be done. And then I know my contractors already know what these costs are kind of about. So sometimes when it comes to getting a deal, you got to be fast, be
mm,
first.
mm.
Um, so having that team around you is just as important as anything else.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's really good. Now, for somebody that's getting started, though, of course, they got to go through that process of trying to vet and get different price estimates and everything, and because they don't know
It's tough.
anybody, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of hard. And now here's what I've been hearing though from other like friends that are investing, trying to invest, is one of the challenges is that you get a contractor in there. And they start on your process on your project, but then they got other clients, they got other jobs, and what I'm seeing a lot of people experiencing is where their contractor is, working other jobs and delaying their project. And so what it tells me is that when you have a contractor, especially until you have that great trust built, you got to have some safeguards in place. You got to have a timeline. You got to have, and what are your thoughts about this? I've been hearing this strategy a lot where they say, hey, look, have a timeline, and then you even have like a reward penalty system where you say, hey, look, if you finish on time, I'll even give you a bonus. But if you finish late, I'm going to even charge you. And someone said, put in the contract not as a penalty, but put it in the contract as a liquidated damage. Because if you think about it, right, Jeff, we have holding costs. Like, I mean, if this is a hard money loan, we're paying like, 12,
12.
13, 15% interest.
Yep.
And every day that job is delayed, that's coming out of our pocket. And so we could put it into our contract with with the GC to say, hey, look, if this thing gets delayed, we need to, charge you a liquidated damage because we got holding costs that we got to cover, So what are your thoughts about, because I feel like, and also too, I mean, man, I mean, finding good contractors are hard. I mean, a lot of these contractors, they're going to bid low. And then once they get in, you're gonna have these change orders. You're gonna and it's and they're gonna promise you a certain timeline up front, but then you got all these excuses coming up and stuff gets delayed. It seems like most jobs are always delayed by a little bit and always go over a budget as well. Now, of course, you can put in a little buffer, so I think maybe
Yeah.
put in some buffer time and put in a buffer dollar amount. But then after that, I think the contractor should be held responsible for paying these liquidated damages. What are your thoughts?
I agree. Funny you should mention that. My very first one, the very first contractor I had in there walked off the job with 20 grand worth of work that was not done in his pocket, and
Wow.
I lost that. That's gone. It's gone forever. But that's the lesson right there. That told me everything I needed to know. I had to work on my contractor agreement. I had to make sure I had the right one, So now I'm very, I don't want to say skeptical, but I'm very,
Mm.
you have to earn my relationship now. You know what I mean? Give me a little something beforehand, and I'll give it back. Some of my contractors, I met them through the front side. Being an agent. Hey, go work for my client. Let me see what you've done,
Mm.
and maybe we can talk about getting this thing up and going. You know what I mean? Because it'll be a single job. Maybe it's a roof. Maybe it's a toilet or whatever. But like, let me see what you do.
Yeah.
Um, and that's them. I'm kind of giving them a little, and then they're kind of showing me what worth their metal is. What are
Yeah.
they worth?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right. It's a scary thing, but that's the only way you get in. If
Right.
you can get in and never experience a loss like that, I mean, you're a diamond. You're a diamond in the rough, man.
Wow. Wow.
This doesn't really happen unless you have
Yeah.
a really good connect.
Yeah, yeah. I heard too that you should never get ahead of the work with your payments, right? So
Yeah.
you try to structure it where you're always having like paying kind of on the backside, you know what I'm saying? Like after they're doing, right? Okay.
Yeah, but you know what happened? The guy, it's almost like you knew what he was doing, right? It's almost like he's done this before, and he waited till he needed that because see, some of these were still draws for
Mm,
the materials and things like that. Um,
mm,
and then now that I look back at it, I can go into all the details and how
mm,
bad of an experience it was, but I'll keep it very professional here.
mm.
He timed it just right, where he could basically walk away and he did exactly what you said. He stopped coming. And he kept saying that I have all these other jobs and all that. And I'm like, well, that's your problem. You know what I mean? If you feel like you should have bid more, that's great. You should just make sure you do better next time. But right now, the budget is. Um, but then he just walked off, and he ultimately decided that that was my problem, and I had to eat it. But
Wow.
it's a invaluable lesson, worth the money 100% because
Yes,
now I know better going
yes,
forward.
yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
but you're right.
I even hear that sometimes what they'll do, I mean, sometimes I even hear of a tip where as investors, maybe we should try to always buy the materials, right? Rather than giving it to the contractor to buy the materials. Maybe we can control, or maybe have it where, if they're going to Home Depot or Lowe's, and we have an account there and then, have them, go pick up the materials and then have them call us and then we pay for it. Or look, I mean, if it's a big job, maybe we can get an employee credit card and give them and have some restrictions on it, but just so that we have that control where we know what exactly is being bought and everything. Maybe something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
I
Yeah.
do like that. Have a Home Depot account. I've done that many times. I have,
Mhm.
I got a card with them. I rarely use it unless I know it's going to get paid off immediately because
Right,
their
right, right,
their interest rates are just nuts on
right.
their card. But
Right, right.
have
Yeah.
another card.
Mhm.
And I would send them there. Toward the end, it was working like that.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, but there was a big draw that needed to happen,
Oh, I see.
and that's
Yeah,
when he got me. But
gotcha.
uh, there was something else I was going to say now, and it eluded me. Um, oh yeah, buying this stuff on our own. See, again, that's kind of coming down to focus camera. Focus.
Mhm. Oh.
There it goes. That kind of comes down to, what are your goals with this thing? For me, I want this to be as passive as I can. And there are investor
Mhm.
contractors out there, guys who know this whole business front to back, and they know what you need as an investor.
Mhm.
Like my guys now, they're in that process. They even stage it for me. That
Mm,
staging
mm,
is built into their contract,
mm,
their
mm.
renovation costs, because they're going to stage it when it's done. My hands are off.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a situation where I can just, look, I'm gonna be down there probably 4 or 5 times during the whole thing. Unless there's a change over $500, don't call me. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
just do it. You know what I want.
right,
You know my product. I know what you do. Like, let's just 90 days,
right,
90 days, 90 days. That's the goal. That's the goal. But is it a perfect world? No, but
right.
that's the goal.
That's nice. That's nice. Are you doing, is there a system though where they're giving you a weekly update or what? What's the system? Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Obviously, check in with me,
Okay.
but none more of this. Oh, hey, we got this going on. I need you to come down here. I'm like,
Oh, I see.
I'm in the middle of a buyer appointment. Someone's in my
Right,
face right now, and I'm like, I
right.
can't come down here. I just don't need that, man. If I'm trying to do 40 transactions a year as
Wow.
an agent and
Wow.
also make 150 grand on the back end on flips, that is a full schedule.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes,
getting my hand out of one is the best thing I could do for myself. And finding that contractor who could automate that for me
yes.
is is a key element.
Oh, that's excellent. That's like, have you tried putting in any type of reward penalty system into your contracts with contractors? Have you
Yeah,
ever tried that?
actually, the GCs, they always love that. You give them a little cat because if you get done in time, the guys don't know about it. GC's gonna make a
Uh,
little extra bread,
right, 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 right,
They,
right.
they don't tell nobody that though.
Right, right, right,
Shh, I
right,
say
right,
that.
right, right, right. That's
But
cool.
yeah,
Very cool. Very cool. All right,
yeah.
that's good. That was good. That was really good. Okay. So back to this deal. So we got all in 168, 400 is what we were looking.
Hmm.
Um, because you said like the 57,000 down payment. Now keep in mind, I mean, our purpose is to try to figure out what our offer price is. It probably won't be that 285. It'll probably be much lower, but yeah. So um
See,
what would be next in your thought process?
and so our 168 for all in that's buying it, that's reno, that's everything. You're saying that's all
Oh
in?
wait, wait, no, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute. I think we when we were calculating, okay, so you said let's see, 57,000 was the 20% down
Mhm.
payment at that point. And then 11,400 was the closing
Uh,
costs,
I
right?
thought you said 168. My bad.
No, no, I think well, okay, yeah. Well, wait a minute. Okay. Wait, is that what no, I thought that's what okay. Wait a minute. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, I think I had written down 168, 400, but I don't know how you calculated that actually.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I only did the closing costs and the down payment. That's just to buy it. You know what I mean? So I would say 68,400 just to buy
Oh,
it.
you're right. 68. Oh, my bad. You're right. You're right. It is
Yeah.
68,000. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, yeah. 68,400. Right, right, right. 68,400. And then and then adding on the renovation, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Right, 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 right. Okay.
And the rents in this area, and now we're going to start getting into. So
Yes.
once I know that this is what it's going to take to own, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're saying that you can rent it right now as it is. Wouldn't be pretty, but you could do it, right? It's livable. You could do it.
It's
Um,
mhm.
so your rents are going to be probably a little bit below the market average in that area. And so then what you got to start wondering is, does the math make sense on your LTV, right? Like, are you going to exceed the mortgage and make some cash flow? And
Right,
I'm pretty sure you're very aware of, like, cash flow, cash on
right,
cash,
right.
operating expenses. You want to hold back maintenance. I mean, you start getting into a lot of math. I mean, we could be here for
Yeah, 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 I know, I know, I
45
know. Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, 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 I know, I know. So, okay, so here's the thing. With the rental comps, right?
Mm.
2450 would be a conservative number, right? Because it kind of ranges from like 2450 to like 28 up to even 28. But to be conservative, let's say 2450. It's a four bedroom, two bathroom, row house. but 2450.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
2450 on a 285K loan. Oh gosh, I wish I had the old my lending partner's he's got like a really nice calculator that he can
Uh,
send out.
right.
But what's that end up being?
Okay.
Hang on.
Okay.
You can go ahead and tell me what you're gonna say.
Well, no, I was gonna. Well, no, I'm following what your thought process is on this final. I mean, are you kind of focusing on, I guess, the cash flow, trying to adjust the numbers so that you meet a certain cash flow or cash on cash return number, or whatever you.
Interesting you should say, and that's perfect because it would come down to like again, what are your goals? If this is the only property you can buy for a while, it's the first one you're going to really struggle to get into the game. You
Right,
might have to sit on this one for a while, right? And build up some equity in it so you can leverage it to maybe get your next one down the line.
right,
So let's just say we're the slow investor right now,
right.
or the early investor. I shouldn't say slow. I don't want to be, um, you
Mhm.
know, then we're going to probably want to maximize our cash flow for
Yes,
this one,
yeah,
so we can recover a little bit. I mean, shoot, we're going to be by the time you by the time you buy this thing, you're going to be 100 grand in, give or take,
right,
altogether.
right.
That's a lot of cash to
That is
invest.
a lot
So
of cash.
recouping some of that while you're gaining equity would be nice. Now, if your goals are to do many or do volume, or you're
Mhm.
trying to turn over really quickly and get more and more and more, then honestly, even if it negative cash flowed a tiny bit,
Uh,
ROE, return on equity, is your game, right? If you're trying to get many, I'm talking
right,
100,
right, right,
hundreds,
right, 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 right.
big goals. But
Right. Yeah, but no.
return on equity is great, especially if you want to just keep leveraging, right? So if I
Right,
can't 70/30 right off the bat,
right.
I don't even know if I want that one. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, in this case, more of a slow investor type of route. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yep.
So what would you say is a reasonable cash flow? I know it's a hard question because it might differ for different people, but if you try to put yourself in the mindset of somebody that's kind of getting in and they need to set a standard in terms of cash flow. I've heard 250, I've heard 300, I've heard 500,
Right.
I'm thinking maybe 300, but I'd love to know what you think you would do if you were an investor like this. I was just kind of starting out. Would you say what would be your minimum estimated cash flow? And keep in mind, we're not, well, here's a question too, I guess. When you calculate cash flow, are you also taking into consideration estimated vacancy, estimated repairs and maintenance, estimated capital expenditures,
Yeah.
this, man,
Yeah.
gets tricky.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Hey man, fridge goes up. Happens all the time, dude.
Right.
Kids hang on it, tear the door off, whatever.
Right.
You definitely want to allow for, capital investments, maintenance, vacancy. There's a whole bag. Actually, I'm not sure if you're aware of these guys. I don't even know if I'm allowed. Am I allowed to say their web
Yeah.
address on here? Okay. There's
Yeah.
actually a community for folks like us, and it's like nationwide, worldwide, and they're called Bigger
Bigger
Pockets. Have you ever
pockets.
heard?
I love it. Yes.
Love them. They have a
Yes.
great
Yes.
calculator for,
Yes.
what you should be holding back for
Absolutely.
vacancy and,
Absolutely.
capital
Let's do that. Yeah.
repairs and replacements.
Yes.
Um, Definitely utilize that and utilize it for your market. Do research in that market. Hey, you, are they turning over really quickly? If you're in a high turnover, tenant turnover area,
Mhm.
maybe hold back for a
Mhm.
little bit more capital replacement or maintenance. Um, so like my buy box, if I was to do this, I'm going to be looking for places where there's just enough turnover that I could replace someone if I needed to quickly,
Mhm.
but you could also be blessed and land that solid guy who's just
Mhm.
doing his thing and he's in there for 5 years.
Yeah.
God bless you, sir.
Right.
Um,
Right.
you know, uh,
Right.
so those are kind of like the areas that I like to try to get in.
Love it. I love it. So
Yeah.
vacancy, would you say, Baltimore, Hamden, maybe 8%, maybe? I mean, because at 8%, that's kind of like 1 month out of the year.
That's fair.
You
That's
know, that's
fair.
a fair. Okay. So we'll say like 8% vacancy that we'll use in the calculation. And then maintenance. I mean, I've heard some people also say maybe maintenance. Well, how much, what percentage would you assign to maintenance? Now, keep in mind, it's an old row house, right?
Mhm.
So houses that are built, these houses built maybe like anywhere between 1890 and 1920. So over 100 years old, you know.
It's
But
gonna
but
be
but then
heavy, maybe.
again, but then again, we are going in and we're going to renovate it to make it rent ready. You know what I'm saying? So, that there's that too.
Right. I would say anywhere from, depending on, how much you renovate, how much you leave old,
Mhm.
let's say anywhere from 5 to, and on the extreme end, like 8%,
Okay. 5 to 8%.
depending.
Right. Very good. Very good.
Go doomsday.
Right. And
Right.
then are you also doing a estimate, a separate, another percentage for the CapEx then too? You know,
CapEx.
like every once in a while, you're going to have to replace, the big things, right?
Yeah, capital
So,
expenses.
yeah. So maybe
Yeah, hold back another 5% for that.
another 5% for that. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so that's cool. So okay, so you would have like 8% for vacancy, somewhere between 5 to 8% for the maintenance and repairs, and then another maybe around 5% for the CapEx. Okay. So what would be the thought process though of your calculation? Would it be where you would come up with a target cash on cash return or a target cash flow number and then just kind of work backwards?
Yeah, target cash
Okay.
flow number.
Okay.
For this investor, whoever this investor
Right.
is in this
Right.
scenario,
Right.
I would say your cash flow is going to be what makes this like survivable, like getting in and surviving. Because while you're able to start recouping some of that, you're also gaining equity. It might be 36 months before you
Right.
get your next one, but
Right.
eventually you'll get to a point where these things start turning over like dominoes for you. You know what I mean? Just one after the
Right.
next, because you've established that those equitable gains. It's just a very slow start. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Would you
But
say
yeah,
300 might be a reasonable, realistic goal for a new investor to aim for a cash flow number?
yeah, 2 to 300
Two to
too.
300?
I,
Okay.
I would say your interest rate will affect that too.
Yes.
If
Yes,
if rates are
absolutely.
already low,
Absolutely.
right? If rates are already low,
Right.
then you might not want to settle for anything less than three. But
Mm.
if rates are kind of, 6 maybe,
Yeah.
or 7,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe you can accept two and then
Gotcha.
refinance when they come down, and then you'll get more cash flow.
Yeah.
That could be an
Gotcha.
outlook.
Right, right.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess the key then would be because you also, when you're getting these loans, right, they're going to escrow the property taxes and the insurance. And also like if you're going through a LLC, you're going to be paying like landlord insurance, not the regular homeowner's insurance, right? So that's going to
Mm.
be a little bit more of an insurance cost and all that kind of stuff. So, so what would be the game plan? I guess the game plan would be get with the loan officer, have the loan officer send you, I don't know what they call it, like a term sheet or
Yep.
whatever for the property, right?
Yep.
So
Loan
that you'll
docs.
see all your numbers. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you'll
Yep.
see property taxes, insurance, and then calculate all that, right? Because that obviously goes into the cash flow calculation. And then also you got, the CapEx, the maintenance and repairs and the vacancy. Okay. So with all that, we play with the numbers to figure out what would be the offer price that like I guess the maximum offer price that could help us achieve that goal of the cash flow of like 2 to 300. I think that's the game
Gotcha.
plan, right? That's the
That
game.
is the game plan. That would be
Okay.
what we try to figure out. So once we had the term sheet, the loan
Right.
docs from the lender, and we're seeing what our PITI is, you
Right.
know, uh, principal, interest, taxes, and
Yes.
insurance. That's what that means, guys. If
Yes.
anyone is curious, once you know all that, then like you said earlier, you can
Right.
start working backwards
Working
and figure it out.
backwards. I
Yep.
like that. I like that. So that's cash flow. And then I guess the other calculation is cash on cash return because cash flow is just, you can't really stop there, right? It's
Right.
also about, because I like the cash on cash return really takes in consideration how much money you're actually putting out on this deal,
Yeah. That that
right?
that is true. Yeah.
So, okay, so the and so when you're talking about cash on cash return, what would be a realistic percentage you think for somebody, starting out like this?
Geez. I mean, what are you thinking? Like 2.5% to
Well, well,
three?
well, here's what I'm thinking though. I mean, look, a high yield savings account is like 3, 4%. an index fund in the stock market, an index fund averages, even though stock market goes up and down, it averages around 10%. But now, of course, I mean, real estate, but then, like you get tax advantages on real estate. You get, what I'm saying? There's other
Yeah.
benefits. If you're comparing that with a stock, you can't really compare it, right? So yeah,
Apples
yeah,
to
yeah.
oranges.
Yeah, yeah, apples to oranges, right? With stock. But I would say that maybe more like I don't know. I'm just throwing it, maybe more like a 7%, maybe 6, 7% cash on cash return. But then I guess there's so many variables that come into play, especially appreciation, right? If it's
Exactly. And with a deal this tight, you know what I mean? And
right.
this particular
Right,
investor,
right.
you might find it hard to have both of those. Like I said, like
I
for
see.
this particular investor to weather this acquisition, I would just be trying to recoup that cash flow because
Yeah,
the average person, and you mentioned the average person a few
right,
times,
right,
they're gonna freak out like that cash is all gone. Think of how much you're in cash right
right,
now.
right,
They just want to start seeing the dollar signs come back.
right,
You know what I mean?
right, 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 right,
After a while they settle down, you know what I mean? And then you start realizing, oh, I made 4%, cash on cash. I didn't realize.
right.
So like
I see.
this particular investor here, I would, like I said, pick one.
Okay,
The other one would be nice to have it like six. That'd be
I see.
great. You know what I mean? But if you're making three, 3.5, right? I could
Right.
live with that.
You
You
can
know what
live
I mean?
with that. Right, right,
Right.
right, 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 right. Okay, that sounds good. Wow, Jeff, this has been good. This has been really good. So now let's get practical. Now you're based in Baltimore, right?
Yes, sir. My
Okay.
my office is right in White Marsh. Yep.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And we've had some conversations and you know that I have a one rental property in Hamden and I'm looking to expand my network and I know that in real estate, you make your money on the buy really, right? That's
Yep.
one of the most important things. You got to buy it right. And so I'm very patient, and I lead a group of investors. We have a mastermind group and everything. And so we definitely want to leverage you as a resource and because now you not only are, obviously because you're a realtor, you get deals off the MLS, but also you also are getting like off-market deals in Baltimore. You're kind of like in the neighborhoods. You're very connected to the communities, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially your sphere. Your sphere of influence is everything. Hey, Aunt Kathy's son-in-law, Joe and Joe, blah blah blah. They're thinking about selling. Great, it's not on the market yet. Okay, guys, I have a house. I have word it's going to be coming to the market. Who wants it? I already know what the house looks like. It needs some loving. I already know what's going to happen. Calling up my investor friends. Hey, y'all,
Yes.
put your eyeballs on this. You know.
Yes, yeah. And I guess another great thing about you, Jeff, is that not only can you help, real estate investors like myself and my team find deals, you can also give us connections in terms of GCs and contractors, electricians, plumbers, all that too, right?
Yes, it pays. That's actually one of my pitches on the front side, on the retail side as an agent is, what you get when you work with us is, we're the great connector. And it's
Mm,
like kind of corny and cliche to say, the one-stop shop, but a lot of people, believe it or not, really rely on that convenience because they don't know what's coming next. Hey, what's my next
mm,
step? Glad you asked. Already called them. It's already, are you
right.
free on Tuesday? It's going to happen. You know,
Yes.
um, so having that vendor for someone is really it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a strong place to be in, you know.
That's good. That's good, Jeff. Wow, wow. All right, well, Jeff, I appreciate you joining us. So as we close, I'd like to just kind of maybe give you some time just to kind of explain your background and just kind of what you do. I know a lot of that's already come out already, but maybe just to make sure that people have a full understanding of your background and the services that you provide for real estate investors that want to invest in Baltimore.
Fantastic. I'm glad that you asked. Thank you. I started off, as a young man in, just construction, like every other young man. I was doing HVAC for a very long time and some plumbing. I say a very long time, 5 years ish, or give or take, with the plumbers and, HVAC guys, and also got out there, got some experience. Very familiar with, I could walk into a new construction house and they're putting a bathroom there and they're doing this here, and I can look at the panel and they don't have arc fault breakers in there and they need to do that, so like I have the construction knowledge. And then I spent 12 years in manufacturing, and one of my buddies ended up getting into the investing world and he was doing the same thing I was doing. I was like, you know what, if he can do this, I mean, I can do this, and he said, read this book. and if you could read this book, I'll sit down with you for an hour and tell you how I got started. And the book was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That's what, yes.
Best
The
book
classic.
ever.
That's right.
Classic, yep.
That's
And
right.
I read it, called him up, he told me what to do, and I decided I was going to do it through real estate. I was going to get that freedom through real estate, and I was like, I'm going to be an agent. That was around like October um 22, I think, 21, 22.
Mm.
And it was 22. And then that January I went and took the class. Valentine's Day, took the test, passed the PSI on my first time, and now I'm an agent.
Wow.
Um, and I was like, well, my whole goal with this was to get into investing. So I don't recommend this, guys, but I liquidated some retirement, took
Wow.
the hit, and said, I'm going to get into this thing all
Wow.
the way deep. We're going to go deep dive. And that's what I've done. And I've tried a whole new career on top of it. Must be nuts, huh? But anyway, so I found a really great team. I'm with the Pomfrey team of Cummins and Company Realtors. We have our own team office in White Marsh, Maryland,
Mm.
and I've worked with a few investors, some very high-powered investors that, buy all the way from the West Coast are buying here.
Mm. Mm.
And just looking for them deals, analyzing. It's hard to find some stuff on the MLS, because
Mhm.
they're a little more richer, makes our
Mhm.
spreads too tight a lot of the times, but you get
Mhm.
lucky. You get lucky. If you look hard enough, and sometimes, people are,
Mhm.
you can work on them a little bit,
Right,
it's
right.
just who do you have working for you is kind of what it comes down to. But, we got into it. We've done our flip. Um,
Mm.
and, we're cultivating the right team right now. I actually have a partner. Um, and we kind of pooled our resources so we could switch the volume, do maybe two, three at a time, maybe two or three times a year to start, maybe
Mhm.
do anywhere from like 6 to 9 houses in a year. See if we can
Mhm.
make that run smooth without our hand in it.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
just keep scaling.
Wow.
That's the goal. But having the knowledge all the way through, being able to represent you, connect you,
Mm.
analyze a deal, help you out, keep you centered. Um,
Mm.
I think it's a valuable, I could be a valuable asset, to anyone who's, hey, I'm looking to get into investing.
Mm.
Could you at least guide me to some useful, you know, resources?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, there's all kinds of networks out there. Get on it. If you're not part of the Maryland Investor Network Facebook page, get on that. If you're not subscribed to Bigger Pockets, subscribe to that. Um, and watch what the big dogs do.
Yeah.
Um, get on YouTube. Some of them guys, some of it's, broad spectrum, but some of it's good. Just
Right.
take what you need, leave what you don't.
Right. Love that. Love that. In our community, there's a lot of young adults, right? And you got student loan debt and stuff, cost of living, all that, right? One of the strategies very popular that I've been trying to promote within the young adult community is house hacking, you know? And
Hmm.
so I guess that would be another thing. So it's kind of like a semi, because it's a personal residence, but also you are investing, and it's just a really great way for a young adult, especially, really anyone, but really a young adult, because if you're not married, you don't have kids yet, you know what I'm saying? You have that flexibility to like live in the basement and rent the other portion of the house, right?
Right.
So that would be something that, our group would love to have you kind of look out for us because, the house has to be of a certain structure, right, to make it really work. Like, walkout basement, private entrance, maybe like some type of kitchenette in the basement,
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
here's another quick tip for your guys who are maybe looking to do something like that, and that's a little less hands-on is,
that.
you can buy a multi-unit for 3.5% down as long as you live in one unit for a year. Refinance, I mean, not refinance, then go ahead and get that unit rented out and then do it again. Keep the cash flow from a multi-unit. That's your workaround
Mm.
for not having to pay 10, 20% on a multi-unit.
Right. That's a
Yep.
good point. Good point. Hard to
Yep.
find though, right? Even though Baltimore has them, but they seem like they're hard to find and
Yeah.
a lot of competition maybe and also too, someone told
Uh,
me this. Someone said that a lot of times these multi-units, they're in neighborhoods that are not as nice. I mean, I heard that usually they're in neighborhoods not as nice as some of the other neighborhoods. I don't know, but
Right.
you know.
Yeah, as
uh,
professionals, yeah, we're not, was what is the word I'm thinking of? Oh my gosh. I can't think of it right now. But
Yeah.
anyway, non-discriminatory basically, like so
Right.
like, NAR says we don't discuss, that
Right.
kind of stuff. But, you know, when you're investing, that will count for vacancy and stuff like that. So it's definitely pertinent to speak on. But I'm with you. The multiplexes are harder to find. I
Yeah.
did see one down near like northern, it was a while ago, like northern, I want to say Northern Fells, but it was a little more up Broadway, kind of going like almost to north, like near
Okay.
Hopkins, but and it was kind of reasonable.
Hmm.
And the thing went quick. Even there,
Wow.
it went quick,
Yeah.
it's like,
So
man,
yeah. Yeah,
um,
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm thinking like if you get a single family home and then turn or a row home and turn it into kind of like a duplex in a way, right? Where you can kind of just separate out, you know. I mean, you might not be able to get the separate meter and all that, and maybe the zoning might not allow for it, but at least for a house hack, maybe we can configure it. I guess the main thing would be having that walkout basement, you know? I guess that's the main thing. Then you can kind of figure out the other stuff, you know?
that egress, yeah, is very important.
Yeah, the egress. Yeah.
That lets you get that actual bedroom. It's got that
Oh,
walkout
God.
egress, man. We can even list it as an actual bedroom, if it was to be on the
Wow.
market. But
Wow.
yeah, I'm with
Okay.
you. Checking zoning. I've had to call zoning many times for
Oh,
clients,
yeah. Yeah.
especially ones who are looking for like crazy, farms, farmette, agricultural. Hey, is this thing an ag pres? And I'm talking to five different people at,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
zoning office, and it's what we do for our clients, man. It's what we do.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Awesome, man. Well, this has been great. I know we ran over a while. We really ran over time.
This
Thank
is
you so
awesome.
much for your time, Jeff. You've been very, very good. And yeah, man, look forward to keeping in contact with you and even introducing you to the members of my investment group and really being able to, leverage you as a great resource to help us build our portfolios, you know? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I looked at your website and I think I like
The
what you do a
dancing.
lot. I
I
looked at
got
it. It was
the
great.
dancing and everything. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, I consider myself being a serial entrepreneur, meaning that, oh, no, no, a lifestyle entrepreneur, meaning that I try to take all of my passions and turn them into a business, you know? And one of my passions is definitely real estate, you know?
Right. Well, you're very community driven. I mean, and
Thank you.
nothing drives, especially in a service industry, because people think
Yes.
this is sales, and it
Yes.
is, but it's more service. You know what I mean?
Right.
So being in a service industry like yourself, like me,
Yes.
you being community driven, man, I love seeing your page. You're out there with the folks and people
Right,
are
right, right,
participating. It's
right.
great, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. All right,
Yeah, man.
brother. Have a good night. We'll talk soon.
All
All
right, man.
right.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.